I'll call the meeting of the Ramshorn Village Owners Association Annual Owners Meeting to order. Before we begin the introductions of the board and the other agenda items, I have three recognitions. First, David Humphrey worked on our new bylaws and policies back in 2016 when there were some issues where our owners were not going to be able to make the key decisions in regard to our whole association. He was instrumental, along with Harry Yostin. And so we wanted to recognize David because he passed away suddenly this past year, and he will be very much missed by the board. He also served on the governance committee. I'll ask for a moment of silence in one more moment, but another person you may not have ever seen, she was in the background, was Carol Graham. She was married to Harry Graham, who was for a while our front office manager. And Carol, again, because you didn't see her, but she was making all the great food for anything we had here. If you've ever had cake at an annual meeting or maybe some other event, Carol made it. And everyone loves Carol's cake. And she's also been very open to us ordering cakes as families as we visit for family events. And so Carol passed away suddenly this past year. But I have some good news related to Carol. Her daughter Mackenzie has her recipes, and she will be making the cake for today's meeting. So if I could call for a moment of silence for both David and Carol. Thank you. The last thing I wanted to mention, Bill and Carol Walsh came to our meetings before I came on the board from 2010. They used to record what owners were here to make sure we had a quorum or we did not, and we had appropriate proxies. They are still very helpful to Ramshorn Association, and they're very, very kind to our staff. Our staff pointed out during the board meeting we just ended yesterday, that every year near the holidays, Bill makes something out of wood. He's a great woodworker, something out of wood, a gift for all of our staff. And they really, really appreciate Bill's gift to them. It's something they look forward to every year. It's something we never hear about, and it was called out during a meeting, and I wanted to mention it to all of you. So with that, we'll begin the introductions of our board of directors, and I will mention that Clark, our board member, is not here because he's at his granddaughter's graduation. So that's totally understandable to all of us, but he made the effort to come during the board meeting both Thursday and Friday, and just left yesterday at noon so he could be there for the events today. So we appreciate it because it's over an 8-hour drive. So with that, we'll start with Matt. Matt, could you self-introduce yourself?
Matt Hanson. Vice President, been on the board 6-7 years right now, whichever it may be. Actually live in Lincoln, Nebraska.
I'm Mark Meyer, I'm the treasurer. I've been on board for 6 years and I live in Sylvania, Ohio.
My name is Steve Hughes. I'm from Bella Vista, Arkansas. I'm just starting my first full term on the board.
Dennis McGlatchy from Santa Barbara, California, formerly Loveland, Colorado, and I'm in my 3rd term on the board and secretary.
Sally Langston, Louisville, Colorado, and I believe I'm on my 3rd or 4th term. It's been a while.
Yes. and Denise Bulat, I've been on the board since 2010. I'm from Bettendorf, Iowa, and that's that. So with that, we're going to verify, or the lack thereof, of a quorum, and I'll call Dennis McGlatchy, our secretary.
Okay. Just like,
It's up to you.
I'll put it here. Pursuant to our bylaws, official meeting requires an attendance of at least 20% of ownership weeks to meet the meeting requirements. Based on today's attendance, based on RSVPs we receive, we fall short of that. Therefore, there can be no official action taken today. However, as in the past, We trust the information we provide will be helpful in providing the current nature and status of your resort, and questions can be asked from those present and through the chat mechanism from those watching remotely. Minutes of this meeting will be taken and will be posted, as all minutes are, on the Ram's Horn website. But again, this, because the meeting is unofficial, so will the minutes be considered so. And with that acknowledgement, we can proceed.
Thank you, Dennis. And so we have received and filed the May 28th, 2022 minutes, but we will not be taking any action on them. So we have been meeting for the last 2 days. We have received reports from our department heads, and our board members and our resort management are pleased to recognize, and we mentioned this in our communication to you all in January, that we have received our 31st consecutive RCI Gold Crown recognition. And we are one of only 70 resorts in the entire world who can say that. So it is a great distinction, and really in great part, it has to do with our hardworking staff and our management. It's because of them that we have this recognition. We have also been, besides our meeting yesterday, we also met in November for our budget meeting, and we also receive monthly financial reports and bi-monthly reports from all the staff. So we hear from Tiffany about any RCI comments, and we hear from Aaron about our monthly financials. And we also hear from Mark about our investment income. So we hear about all of those things throughout the years. The board has worked with the staff because of changing work issues. Yeah, last year after we met, we really had to turn on a dime. Our staff, some of our key staff, were frankly people were trying to poach them. They're very well recognized among the industry here. And so we had to increase our pay to be competitive with the other resort industry facilities here in Estes Park. And we did that. We bumped pretty much everyone's salary, and we kept a majority of our staff, which was wonderful. And right now, according to the reports we received from our staff yesterday, we are fully staffed for the summer, and everyone's knocking on wood about that. The board also has been challenged by wanting to make sure that the resort stays in great condition. So continuing to invest in the capital in the resort, both exterior finishes, interior finishes, and even appliances and those types of things are a continued effort by the board. Most recently, we were able to make sure that all the dining sets are now the Hickory dining sets, which should last for many years, and we're happy about that. You know, in recent years, also the surrounds in the showers have been updated, and that's also another effort that we have tried to focus on. And we're currently working incrementally. We have to do it incrementally. We can't do everything overnight. Things like fireplaces and that type of thing. And we will work incrementally as we need to replace flooring to look at the luxury vinyl. Some of your homes may already have the luxury vinyl. We'll continue to look at opportunities to do that in our homes. So we've got some cost pressures besides the staffing. We have cost pressures related to insurance. The insurance went up drastically this past year, or this current year, due to the fires in Colorado. And basically the insurance industry for virtually the whole state of Colorado did a carte blanche across the board. It's going to increase this much. It doesn't matter if we're taking mitigative actions like sprinkling our resort every day. Even when it rains, you might say to yourself, why are we sprinkling? That's why. because it protects us from fire. And there are other resorts that do not do that. So, but they don't take that into consideration when they determine our insurance. We just get a carte blanche increase. So we try to negotiate, our agent tries to negotiate, but those are kinds of issues we're dealing with. We're also dealing with property tax issues. If any of you live in Colorado, you've had a 30 to 50% increase in your property or your business, and we are anticipating an increase in ours. We don't know the final numbers, so we're continuing to monitor that. So we're very concerned about that. But if our property assessments increase, then in turn our insurance will increase. So we're playing this balancing act. So we're frankly going to have a pretty challenging budget meeting in November. We're meeting on November 9th and 10th. So the 9th is the day before Veterans Day. The 10th is the holiday of Veterans Day. Of course, the 11th is Saturday. So that's our next meeting, and it will be a budget meeting. In closing, I just want to say that I appreciate our staff so much, but I also appreciate the board. We're not yes people. We don't rubber stamp. We all come to the table with different levels of experience in different sectors of business, and I think we all bring something to the table that helps us work together and try to meet the challenges that our association is meeting. But we still are a beautiful resort, and we still have a great staff that are keeping us at that gold crown level, and we appreciate all their work. 2 board positions will be up for re-election this year, and in the midsummer, our voting committee will contact all of you to alert you to the opportunity to self-nominate to be considered for those board positions. And we appreciate the work of the voting committee on those efforts. I encourage you to contact any of the board members, any of us, and or any of the staff if you have any questions. We'll try to field your questions and be as responsive as possible. Thank you.
Please, can I make one comment?
Yes.
Even though we don't know what our insurance rates are going to be, we have got our reassessment and our evaluation has gone up significantly. So that we would assume then they're going to get hit pretty hard on our property taxes.
Right, and that's across the board in the state of Colorado. If you'd like more information about that, I can discuss that after the meeting, because there is a piece of legislation in play to be voted on in November to provide property tax relief to all property owners in the state of Colorado, including Rancone.
Yep. And in fact, we moved our budget meeting by 2 days to wait till after that vote, because that might help provide a little bit of relief, not 100%, to our property tax costs. So we'll have more information, at least a little bit more information when we meet at our finance or our budget meeting. And then we'll know exactly what's going to impact us by January when we receive our tax bill. Okay, thank you. The next things people will be hearing from are our Community Association Manager Report, Deb Gibson, and she'll come to the podium.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone here and also on Zoom. We have about 100 participants
Excellent.
watching us. I don't know if they're all signed on now, but they all said they were going to watch it. Yeah. So they may be making breakfast. Yeah. Before I get started, I would like to ask everyone to give a round of applause, whether you're here or not, to your board. They work and worry for you every day. So, and also to their spouses who give up a lot of time with their, yes. So, I'd like to kind of just briefly mention a couple things you'll see in my report. You can read it in more detail, but this is our 31st anniversary. We are now in our 20th year of owner-controlled association management, so we are an aardvark in the industry. There's very few of us out there that have controlled our own destiny for this long. one thing that I always try to reinforce is our mission statement. Take a minute to read it, because everything we do here, every decision we make is with that mission statement in mind. Given that, I'd like to report, if you look around you, the state of our association is great. We're doing well. We've weathered many storms over the last 5 years, and we've come out to a blue sky. So, as Denise mentioned, we've gotten a lot of these long-term things that Tina will tell you seem like took forever, because we were doing a little bit every year. But a lot of those big long-term projects like countertops, cabinets, tile, carpeting, couches, dining rooms, showers, fireplaces, we're making a great deal of process. And in addition to that, you have all the regular maintenance and you know, the upkeep that you see that Dan and his crew do. So for example, each year we take 10 or 11 homes offline. They're offline for about a month at a time, and Dan and his crew do a full refresh, and then Tina and her crew follow behind and do a complete and up to the max cleaning of every single item and wall and surface in the home. And she does that annually in each of the homes as well. So we've made a lot of progress on that. We're hoping that we're going to see a little bit of budget open up now that we've got some of these big projects behind us. But you'll see in my report some of the things that we do on an annual basis. One of the things that you're going to start seeing more rolling out of is the Owner Connect, which is the new owner software. Currently, owners can make association payments online, finally. We're joining the 20th century, yeah. Soon, we're going to start experimenting with putting some of the lesser demand weeks that don't book as far in advance, so you can get online and see if you can make a reservation online. That's going to be rolled out soon. Tiffany and Alex and I will be working on that as we get past the meeting. When we talk about value, which is the whole point of our mission statement, one of the things that Denise touched on and Steve touched on is that the property is worth an awful lot more than what was originally invested here. Roughly $6 million was put into the property in the purchase and the improvements between 1989 to about 1995, maybe even 98. Yeah, so there's about a $6 million investment by the original developer. Today, we're estimating that the property is worth somewhere between 27 to 32, I put the figures in here, $1 million. And with that value, of course, then we start seeing the challenges of property taxes and things. But the good news is your property's worth a whole lot more. And we all own it. One of the misconceptions that you see from time to time is that some of the owners think there's still a corporation or a developer behind the property, and there isn't. It's just us. So everybody that's listening today that's in the room is an owner. We all own this beautiful property jointly, and I don't anticipate that we'll ever see a property like this with the views that it has and the condition it's in at the entrance to Rocky Mountain National Park do anything but increase in value. So you got a great place, and our renters are discovering that. Gus and I have had a wonderful time seeing how much we could charge people this summer. So we were seeing pretty commonly in 2022 during the summer that we were getting about $600 a night during the peak times. Now we're over $700 a night. So we don't get that all the time, but we're seeing it, and it's starting. And if you take that family that's renting at $700 a night times 7, you're at $4,900. Add 14.2% tax. You're up to $5,600. As owners, you're here for about $840 a week. So again, congratulate your board for keeping those costs low. But the rentals help us make up some of that less. So the more successful the rental is, the more that gives us a little bit of cushion on our maintenance fees. And in addition to that, it creates the opportunity for new owners, because when you're paying this much to stay here, ownership becomes really attractive, right? What we're seeing too, there's an interesting development. Each year we're banking less and less to RCI. We're a Gold Crown property. We're one of the few that have been a Gold Crown for 30 years. But we're seeing more owners take advantage of the rental opportunity if they're not using all of their weeks. We're seeing less deposits into RCI, and that particularly would be during the red season. You can still get a lot of value with your white season weeks if you trade through RCI. White season, we're not going to get you the kind of rental income that will offset your fees, but the red season certainly, and some of the white season now. Even though we're seeing less and less of the RCI gas, and certainly virtually none in the summer, that's still a nice option to have. With regard to our staff, none of what you see as far as our tremendous reviews, TripAdvisor, RCI, Google, you know, we're all in the top level of resorts in Estes Park. It's possible without our staff. And our board has made sure that we've done everything that we possibly could to retain the staff. And that's not just pay and benefits, but also your staff is one of the only staffs in town that during COVID and floods and fires and shutdowns, et cetera, has stayed on. They've been paid. We haven't lost them. And we've actually gained a few from other resorts that let them go, right? So there's a lot of loyalty that flows both ways. They take very good care of your property. The challenge that we continue to see is housing. Average home sale in Estes Park has been over the $1 million mark for most of the last year. You can imagine what that means if you're trying to make a living and live in town. So we did pass in November of 2022 with the help of Visit Estes Park, which I serve on the board with, a ballot initiative that provided an additional significant amount of funding that goes towards housing and childcare. And that's the town's attempt to try to do whatever we can to keep a workforce base in town rather than having people commute. That passed by over 60%. Plans are being put into place now. It's not going to give us any relief this year, but we know we're heading in that direction. So it's really crucial for us to keep that great staff together. And part of the reason we have such a great staff is because our department leaders do whatever they can to make longevity a big success here. With that, I'd like to introduce you to your department heads. Aaron Dalby. "20 years this year. 20 years this year."
I started when I was 2.
How many years?
Yeah. But Erin takes care of all the business end of the property, all the HR stuff. She's my assistant general manager. So you don't see her a lot because she's got the shade over her eyes. But she is diligently working for you and watching your money, which is even better. Tina Brown. Tina, also 20 years. Tina pretty much touches everything that you touch. So anything,
I try to sanitize.
anything that touches a guest experience, Tina's there, right? Dan Hannaford, yes. Dan's been here 25 years, so he is third only to Alex and I.
Wow.
Yeah, so Dan makes sure that everything is maintained. He and his staff work on reserve projects over the winter time. If anything's broken, call Dan. I don't think I have to introduce her, but Tiffany Hannaford. She's only been here 20 years, so Dan has seniority.
I started when I was 2.
Yeah, she also started when she was 2. And unfortunately, Gus Lavery wasn't able to be here today, so he's our newest manager. He's been here almost 3 years, but he came to us with 18 years of hotel experience in all different areas. So he's been a great addition to our front desk. All of these guys work together to make sure our budgets and goals that the board approves come to fruition each year. All are dedicated to making Ramshorn Village the very best it can possibly be each and every day. Over and over and over again, we hear that the staff makes the difference. I can't tell you how many times a week I hear that. Our customer service scores are among the best in the timeshare and hotel industry. We were awarded our 31st consecutive RCI Gold Crown Award for 2023. We're in the top 1% of all 4,500 resorts worldwide. And that's as a 31-year-old property, guys. We are also a TripAdvisor Traveler's Choice and Excellence in Service for the 10th straight year. And you're seeing very, very high reviews on Facebook, Google, TripAdvisor, Redweek, and other internet sites. You are welcome to make a review, because even though you're an owner of the property, you also stay here, so you can review your stays, and that's very, very helpful. Ramshorn Village needs to continue to be vibrant and welcoming to the new owners, as well as the second and third generations that will inherit our current owner base. Over 90% of all ownerships have been retained by original purchasing families. That is extremely unusual in this industry. When sold on site, Ramshorn Village resale values surpass what is customary in the timeshare industry. And in part because of what we've reinvested as owners into the property year after year after year, we've put in $4.4 million in reserve improvements and another $415,000 in home stretch funding from Ramshorn Realty. Thank you, Alex. Current real estate values would indicate that Ramshorn is worth it between $28 and $32 million. Not that we intend to sell it, but we like to keep track of that. It's been a privilege to work with all of these people up at the podium, and all of the staff, and all of the ones that they lead on the property. And thank you very much for your support. By the way, when the cakes arrive, and I got a notice that they're on the way, you'll notice Mackenzie is bringing up a picture, her wedding picture, with her father and mom.
Oh.
And it'll be by the cake. So some of you will remember here, as well as kids.
Good morning. I'm Mark Minard, the treasurer. And as Denise had mentioned before, we met yesterday, and the auditors were here, and they presented us with the annual audit. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I will go over some of the main things in their audit report. There's the auditor's opinion, which they've stated, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly all material respects the financial position of the association as of December 31st, 2022 and 2021, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the years then ended in accordance with the accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So what that is, that's considered, is this not on? Oh, okay. Okay. This is what is known as an unmodified opinion, which is what you want. It's a clean audit. So in light of this, I want to give thanks to Erin for all her attention to detail and, you know, correct accounting. So that helps when it comes time to the audit. And the basis for their opinions, they've conducted their audit in accordance with the excuse me, auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America. But it is management's responsibility for the preparation and the accuracy of the financial statements, and to do that in accordance to the generally accepted accounting principles. So I'm just going to go over, I'll give you the results of last year. I'm going to go to the income statement first. We had total revenue last year of $2,495,435, which was down from the prior year by about $122,000. But there's a lot of things that make that up. In the prior year, we had $187,000 of income that we received the forgiveness of the PPP loan that we got from COVID. So we were able to take that into income in 2021. So that, when you look at this year, it's really not down as much because of that. And also in 2022, we had unrealized losses on investments, $213,000. So that's really not a cash loss. It's just an unrealized difference between the market value and the cost of your investments. So that kind of distorts that $122,000 change. We did have, you know, as Denise had mentioned about payroll, our expenses did go up 11%, but inflation's high. We had to do the wage adjustments. Insurance is going up. Well, that didn't hit so much last year, but it will hit this year. We had a lot of like room supplies. We just had a lot of, you know, inflation to hit us last year. So that was a negative on that. So we actually ended up the year with a loss of $97,000. But remember, $213,000, that is an unrealized loss. So if you add that back on a cash loss, we are actually positive about $116,000. Then on the balance sheet, our total assets at the end of the year were just about 3.3 million. They were 3.6 million the year before. We're down about 418,000. Some of that again is the unrealized loss, $213,000 of that's from that unrealized loss. Our cash and investments were down 369,000, but we transferred 225,000 out of investments into operations, so that's why the investments went down in addition to the 213,000. We still had $69,000 of interest and dividend income. So then the liabilities also went down 320,000. Most of that is from the repairs and replacements liability that we had from dues that were set aside for that. We spent that money, and you'll see that why the expenses were up so much is because our capital expenses were up more so than what they typically were because of the things that Denise talked about, the fireplaces and the replacement of the furniture and that type of stuff. So all in all, we're still in a good position. We have a total fund balance of $1,025,000, went down to $97,000 from the loss that we reported. So we're still very financially solid. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Then I have the treasurer's report. This was as of April 30th. This shows the breakdown of our cash and investments. We've got in the resort operating funds, we've got held for future use, which is rental deposits that have come in for future rentals. That's the liability that we've got, as well as future prepaid dues where people will pay, like when you reserve 2 years out in advance, we get those dues, that goes into prepaid dues. So that's the liability on our side. In our reserve funds, we have $279,000 set aside for capital improvements. It's kind of like a rainy day fund, but it's there for whatever we need it for. Then we have a breakdown. So at the end of April, we had $1,609,581, and it's an increase of about $217,000 since the end of the year, end of 2022 on our audit statement. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
George Hicks, what is the story behind the unrealized loss accounting entry?
Well, I mean, everybody knows if you're in the stock market this past year, the market has been down, so that's what it's from. It's just the difference in the fair market value and what our cost is. It's just the market we're all experiencing. I'm experiencing it. Everybody is. So that's the unrealized loss. That has since come back since the end of the year.
You don't take the loss until you
We don't take the loss. It's not an actual
yeah,
loss. It's just unrealized. The only time you'd realize that loss is if you actually sold your investments.
Which we're not intending
which we're
to
not
do.
doing. And we're invested heavily in
We'll wait for it to
fixed
come back.
income. We have no, per se, stock. The only thing comes close to that, we do have some preferred stock, but that's paying a fixed rate. It's kind of acts more like a bond. Anything else? Okay. Mark Allison, who's our chairman of the investment committee, is unable to attend. I think he was here this past week, but he's on his way back home to, I believe, Kansas City. So I'll go over his report. This was as of May 15th. He stated that the current value of the account was $1,260,000. Our account has an overall yield of 4.5%, so we're actually, the investments we're in, we're actually getting paid 4.5%. Regardless of what the market's doing, we still have that yield. And there's some money in a market fund that we put in there that's getting 4.7% right now. Then on he has a graph in there. It kind of has our target of fixed income. We have a target of 95% and a target of 5% cash. We're below that in the fixed income, but we, as a board, decided, it was back in November, we moved some money into this preferred stock because that preferred stock is actually paying us 6.1%. So overall, when you take that average yield that we have right now, we have a current yield of 4.5%. Year-to-date, we've earned 3.29%. The last 12 months is 0.5. So this is going up because the interest rates have went up, so our fixed income is going up as well. So we're experiencing the Fed's raised the rates up to, I think the prime is like 5.25 or something like that right now. So that's why we've seen this increase in this yield. Any questions on that? All right, I'll turn it back over to Denise.
Thank you, Mark. Alex Gibson will make a report on our real estate activity.
It's very short, so.
Okay.
So, good to see everyone. 34 years ago, when I brought Deb out here and said, we can do this, she said, yeah, right. It's a fabulous property. It's come a long way. I know a lot of other people in the Estes Park community. I'm looking at Gerald, one of our owners who also owns Estes Park Team Realty now, formerly Prudential. A lot of people in the community thought, what are they going to do there? Every year I talk about the ever-increasing prices of real estate. Catching up with Gerald right before we started this meeting, how high are people bidding right now that you've missed out on?
10 to 50,000 over.
10 to 50,000 over the asking price, and they're losing out on the sale. And by the way, there is one that hit the market yesterday. I'm surprised it isn't under contract. Probably will be today. Only $700,000 in the Black Canyon Hills behind the Stanley. Way underpriced, up and out of town broker. So, June, you want another house in Estes Park? But that's going to continue. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to wait till things turn down. Now, Estes Park is unlike any other place in the state. We're surrounded by Rocky Mountain National Park and Roosevelt National Forest. And we just are running out of land. And that's making the prices go up. On the sales of the timeshare, I'm still doing stuff in the general market. And thanks to some of our owners here, I've had a few good transactions last year. And one's in the audience right now that thank you for using me as your broker. And we all know the intense negative publicity about the timeshare world. You get it all the time. You see it on TV, you get the phone calls. The board, as we're discussing things, says, but we're not like that. I think everybody watching this, everybody that owns a Ramshorn says, but we're not like that. Well, it's hard to convince an outsider that we're not like that. But the challenge is to keep the values up every now and then. There's another broker in the town that does take listings at probably about 30 cents on the dollar of what it should be worth. That's the bad news. And the reason why is certain owners have gone in and just won out. And the good news is it's very few. Right now in the outside market, other than what I've got, there's only 11 weeks for sale. 6 of them are single off-season weeks. One of those, somebody in the audience is making an offer on that today, so that should be down to 5. There is one 3-week package, priced very low, and one 2-week package. So if anybody wants to explore that, talk to me after the meeting.
How many total weeks are owned at Ramshorn Village?
There's 2,340 weeks at Ramshorn Village. So when you talk a total of 10 weeks out there,
Not a lot.
no, it's a small percentage. So challenge is to sell the inventory for those owners that do need, life does change. So we've got people that either are downsizing, selling some of their weeks, or just at their age. So we want a viable exit program. That's why I am active. And again, as someone mentioned the other day, they say about the developer sales. There is no developer at Ramshorn Village. Everything I have listed is an individual reseller, just like everybody in this room and everybody watching. So there is no entity out there competing with the homeowners, because we are the owner of the property.
What's your phone number if anybody wants to call you?
Yeah, 970-481-3873. That's it. Thanks for coming. Any questions?
we gonna do questions for, I'm getting questions in from Zoom.
At the very end.
Sure.
And it's very soon.
Sure.
Yes, yes. So we do not have a report from the Governance Committee. Harry Yosten is the chair of the Governance Committee. I did mention his name before, along with David Humphrey. Again, both of them were instrumental in restructuring our bylaws and the way we change any bylaws or policies. But we've had no activity this past year. I also mentioned our voting committee. Valerie Wallstrom is the chair of that committee. And a written report was provided in your information. In regard to voting, I did want to mention one thing I didn't during my report, but this past year, in the late summer of 2022, the voting by owners exceeded 60% online. That's extremely unusual. And I'm really proud of that because that's part of what Harry and David were all about, making sure you voted rather than a proxy vote by someone or even a board. You voted and you made decisions. So that's what we want to happen. We want you to be responsive when you can on any voting opportunities. We care about that. We want that to happen, and we want the owners to have their own voice. Secondly, between Deb and Alex, they mentioned RCI and anyone who banks. Well, my husband and I do not come to Ramshorn during the off season. We come in the summer. We come for 2 weeks in the summer, but we we bank our White Week. And it does, Deb referenced that it does have great value, and it does. We have gotten between 28 and 30 points for our White Week when it banks, and then we bank a week that we own in Kauai. And between the two, we are getting into some of those other top 1% resorts in the world. Samoset is an example in Maine, for instance. And there's an example down in Orlando where you literally get a house with its own pool. So those are examples of recent trades that my husband and I have been able to do by using our White Week with that value. So again, demonstrating some really good value with our ownership. Yes?
Before we move on from that point, would you have Steve explain how he gets multiple weeks in Palm Springs?
You might want to stand up so you can be heard better.
I understand.
Well, no, you aren't. Remember, this is being heard by those online.
Well, we actually own some Wyndham points. But the bulk of what we do with Wyndham allows us to spend 3 or 4 weeks in Palm Springs every winter, is we take 2 of our White Weeks here, off-season weeks, and Wyndham gives us a ton of points for those. And that really allows us to stay 3 or 4 weeks in Palm Springs every January and February. And it's pretty cool, and they don't allow, they have this, we did this 7 years ago, so I don't know what the current deals are and all like that, but they don't do it for all resorts. They have a checklist of some small resorts that they will do this with because those are so valuable that they use them somewhere in what they're doing. So for us, it worked out a big deal. We live in a milder climate than Kansas City, where we're from in Arkansas, but it's not as mild as I like in January. So it's worked out great for us to get 3 or 4 weeks out there every winter, which is 2 weeks here. And if we bought that many points through Wyndham, our dues would be way more than what we're paying here for those 2 weeks dues. So it worked out really good for us. Wouldn't have been good before I retired. It wouldn't have worked for us probably that much before we retired because I couldn't take that much time off. But it's really worked great for us since we retired.
The last agenda item before owners' comments is the status of our Ramshorn weeks owned by the association, and we own 349 weeks. One of the questions we've received, I've received them directly by email, but I know also Deb and Alex have received, is why do those numbers fluctuate and go up and down? Well, some of it has to do with those inexpensive weeks you're seeing, or weeks that might go to quote unquote a fire sale because of back dues not paid, and that we have a very low percent of that happening at Ramshorn. Deb, what percent is that of people who default?
It's a small fraction of 1%.
It's less than 1%. That's also unusual with timeshares. Yes.
I do have a comment. So of those 300 weeks, we need approximately 50 to 100 weeks per year for maintenance. So there's not really 300 weeks sitting out there that are unsold. If you subtract the maintenance, that's a third of what the board owns.
Mm-hmm. So they give us flexibility, and Tiffany would say, having some of those weeks in our own inventory that are red, help our owners when they call and say, I forgot, I forgot to book my week, I forgot, or can I come out in late August? Is there any availability? And it's that helps us provide that to our owners. So that number of weeks provides some flexibility and provides some opportunity for maintenance. So there is some value to having that, quote unquote, in our bank. So with that, we will begin with owners' comments and questions.
Do you want to start with the first question, because you did get it in advance? You want to send to
Sure.
Do you have those?
Sure, and Gerald has a question that, we could go with you, Gerald, and then
Okay.
I'll go to that.
I've been a broker here in Estes Park for 30 years, and I did use Alex as my broker when I purchased here. You addressed wages. You can work at Starbucks, at Safeway for $21.82 an hour.
Yep, just right on the placard.
Insurance, there's 4 HOAs that I'm aware of in Estes Park that have had their insurance terminated, and they're uninsurable.
Oh my gosh.
So you guys are in a great position. Even though rates are going up, at least you have insurance. Be grateful for that. My personal opinion, luxury vinyl is an oxymoron. I've seen it slide, warped.
Yeah.
It's not a good product. I would prefer that you, just my opinion, use tile, and they do have tile that looks like wood, and it will last forever. And I told Alex, gosh, you get that much money, maybe I should rent my weeks out. He said, you buy a wind And this resort is 31 years old. Look around.
It's amazing.
It's not tired. It doesn't look like it's old. I get to go in and out of a lot of places in Estes Park, and every owner should be very proud of what you've accomplished here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we received a question by email yesterday, and the question related in part to accessibility in our homes. So we have, I think, 3 homes that have some for mobility issues, have accessibility and have ramps to get in. And I believe they're mostly in peaks, are they?
Yes.
Yes, so that people can be in their master bedroom on the first floor. And of course, with all our new surrounds in the showers, we have the new bars that help you hold on and give you some stability when you're showering. Lastly,
Can we say, this is Mackenzie Graham?
Oh.
She just gave her first 2 Carol kits. So you'll be enjoying those today. Yeah.
And Mackenzie,
her mother left her the recipe,
Yeah.
but it only had ingredients.
Oh.
Directions. So, beautiful. Yeah. I think she took them out there. Do you have the picture?
Yes, I was gonna put some of those flowers on the cake. I'll get the picture.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you.
thank you. And the other suggestion was for the height of the toilet stools. And we do have a few units with those kinds of stools. And we can integrate that into probably one of 2, because we do have to remember that sometimes a family with one person who has mobility issues may have their children or their grandchildren with them, and they would like to have a different kind of
Can we ensure that the 3 homes with the ramps have the taller toilet
They do.
stools on the name?
They do
Okay,
already.
perfect.
But there's a logic to maybe having one restroom with the higher stool and one restroom not.
Sure.
And then that way it accommodates a family. So we as a board will look into it, and again, incrementally, as we have the opportunity, we can make some of those upgrades.
And we also have portable, so we have, for those who are disabled that cannot be in one of the other homes, Tina and Carrie have a whole list of things that they can put in the home to make it more accessible. Yeah.
Very good. And Alex already addressed one of the other part of the second part of the question that related to concerns about those inexpensive weeks being sold by one realtor here in Estes Park. And that's being addressed, and it's a very small amount, and it's only being handled by one realtor. You might see it under other realtors' names because MLS ratings go, of course, out, you know, as a general rule under all realtor companies, but only one realtor is really handling, and there's only a few weeks. So then that was the other part of the question that we received yesterday by email. So is there any more, Sean?
Yeah, I do have them coming in. I'll start with one that came in really early on from George Hicks. It says, every year we hear about Ramshorn has once again achieved the distinction of being one of the few associations that have qualified for the award that you mentioned. It would be nice to hear what it is that compromises the qualifications for the few associations that achieve that status. Why does Ramshorn keeps making that grade?
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
But there's actually a rating sheet, and Tiffany sends that rating sheet to us, and Deb can explain
Yeah.
what the elements are.
So the board gets this every,
Talking to the mic, you can.
Okay, yes, so Deb, come on around.
Or you can pull it off there, and she can hold it.
I just, I'm not. Knock something over. So basically, every month Tiffany distributes the monthly comment card reports from RCI guests that stay here. There's certain threshold requirements to be at different levels. We've always by far surpassed the highest. You know, I think it's, I don't have the numbers here, but I think it's around 4.4 to 4.6 out of 5 scores to be Gold Crown, and we're usually 4.7, 4.9, etc. So we easily pass those.
But I
It's all based on the RCI
I think
guess.
they'd like to know the criteria.
Karen,
Could you-
Oh, it's the quality of the home, quality of the amenities, service, check-in, housekeeping, maintenance. It's several different factors. If you,
I'd suggest we publish on the website just comment card scores. So you can see, like I said, we far surpassed the threshold.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think all you have to do to really understand the difference is trade and go stay in a resort that's not a Gold Crown.
Yes.
yeah. And, yeah. So, I mean, you earn it. You know, you earn it. And it takes not only the staff service, but it also takes the homeowners having a commitment to maintain, to spend the money needed to keep the property up.
Yes.
And remember, with Ramshorn, there is no profit center. There's no management company. There's no developer. Typically, a management company and a developer is taking 30%, you know, adding it into your actual expenses. So that's why our maintenance fees are so much lower than most managed resorts, because we're self-managing because of these folks, all right?
And, yeah,
Yep.
and to speak to that, yeah, you say we're not a profit center. When we do a budget, we budget zero. We're not here to make a profit. We're here to cover the expenses and keep the property up.
Well, we want to make profit on the rental.
Well, yeah.
But anything that it helps us keep our fees low, yeah.
We reinvest the profits in the
There's a-
resort, basically.
While you're still up there, Deb, I thought I'd ask a question.
Uh-huh.
What is the percentage of property that gets rented out every year?
Can you repeat that for the Zoom so they?
We may have to get back to you on that.
Yeah.
I want you to repeat the question.
So here's the reason it's a difficult question to ask. Every week it's different. I came out of the hotel business. I don't know if a lot of you knew that I was at the Stanley for 20-some years. We had a hotel that was a certain size. We had so many rooms. Here you don't. I can have a week where we have 7 homes put up for rent. I can have another week where we have 12, another one 18, another one 23. Depends on what you guys do. We don't have inventory other than the little that the association owns on its own that we can reserve. But everything else that I get is based on an owner saying that they want to put something up for rent.
Yeah.
So our job is to do the best possible job we can for that owner that's got something for rent. So it varies. Probably I could go into the bowels of the software and find out how many actual rental nights. I just don't have that information here. And it varies from week to week. That's one of the hard things with managing this, is because we don't know how many weeks we need to market from week to week, because it changes.
Now, one thing
Did
we
you mean
keep track.
I have the data, I could
Well, but
calculate
I
that for
think
you.
what might even be more interesting, which we have pretty readily available, is the occupancy percentages.
Yeah, we have
So
that.
we have occupancy, we get occupancy reports, the board does, and it's up for every day. So that might get to what you're trying to figure out.
Okay, is it mainly the red weeks though that you're?
The red weeks are, oh yeah, by far the red weeks, I mean, that's high season. So your red week, occupancy is usually in the 90s, up to 100%. I mean, there's some shoulder that may be a little bit. It depends again on how many weeks. If I have an owner, I have 37, well, we'll never have that, but let's say I had 30 owners all put up Memorial Day weekend. Well, it's a busy week. It's not going to be busy all week, right? So my occupancy is going to change from day to day too. So each week I get an occupancy report for the next 3 months, and I get what my current sales are every single day and my availability every single day. And then we share information with the board as well. But we have those figures out of the software.
There's a lot of data.
There's a huge amount of data, yeah.
And I would note that if they leave early, like my husband and I had to leave early from our Red Week, they've been, especially during Red Week, July 4th, it's going to rent that night. And we might even get a little bit of money because we had to leave one day early.
Yeah. So your prime rental opportunities is red. I mean, that's when our rates are the highest, our occupancy are high. White season's getting stronger. When I first moved to town in '74, there wouldn't have been a soul in this town before Memorial Weekend. So, that's not the case now. We're getting consistently busier, so.
Dave's got a question.
So is everything you sell now just resales? You guys don't sell
We're willing to sell
the
it.
300 weeks that the association?
No, we can sell those too.
We're happy to
Here's
sell
here's the problem with the association weeks, and part of the reason they take back seat a little bit. These guys won't let me reserve any of the, these guys won't let me reserve, I'm Italian. These guys won't, only part. As you saw yesterday, the other half's Irish. So these guys don't let me reserve any weeks until a year out for the association weeks.
So I'm going to say that differently. The board has traditionally prioritized the owners being able to reserve the weeks they want over the association.
Yeah, so when Tiffany, or actually Gus now, goes in and reserves the association-owned inventory, we wait until a year out. Basically, that's what we're saying. And the reason we do that is that you guys get highest priority. So when the association has something to sell, guess what kind of weeks they get?
Not the popular ones.
Right. So we don't get the highest demand weeks. Also on the rental side, same thing. With the association-owned weeks, we can't reserve the best rental weeks. We are also lower in priority for a lot of those weeks. You can kind of get it.
However, if you want a single white week, make an offer, man. The board will happily consider it.
Yeah.
Anybody wants white weeks?
Why are some owners going to somebody other than Alex?
Because they want to sell it cheaper than you would.
Yeah, but they're like $3,000 or $3,000.
It's insane. It's
Why
insane.
wouldn't they want more
Well,
It doesn't make sense.
and see,
They want a fire sale.
and I don't mean to say that we have people that are insane here, but the act is insane. So basically what happens then, let's say you take a week down there and you're saying, I want to sell it fast, so I'm going to list it at 5,000. You're going to come in and you're going to say, I want to sell it faster than him, it's going to be at 4,000. You're going to come in and say, you want to sell it at 3,000, so it's a bid to the bottom. And that's why Alex won't participate in it. Because we're all here, if you read the mission statement, we're trying to create value for all of us.
It's kind of like, why would anybody sell a house on Pioneer Lane for
$700,000, because they got a bolder broker.
Well, they want out.
And they want
They
to,
want out, and that's what
kids want out.
You see kids.
Yeah.
Don't want it.
Yeah, so someone in this room already is going to take advantage of the lowest price one that's down there.
Well, I did once.
Yeah, you did once. Yeah. And,
But
you
it was
know,
because of him, he let me know about
and,
it.
yeah.
That's
And-
in our best interest.
I know.
And, you know, but for the long-term strategy, it's not a good situation, because every one of the owners that do that, we're giving them an opportunity to try to get rental income out of it, because, I mean, this rent, when we first took over from the developer, he was getting about $500,000 a year in rental. We're gonna hit about $1.4 million this year, right? So there is good rental income coming into the property, but you don't wanna keep doing that because it undermines the other owners, right?
Our top priority is owners. We
Yeah.
own, every one of us owns here.
Yeah.
We're here for owners, shareholders, #1 priority. And so that's why we allowed you to make reservations prior to the association
Right.
making the reservations, and I hope that stays that way literally forever.
And the rental is important, but only to the extent that it serves the interests of the owners, for all of us. Because Alex and I own some weeks too, so anyway, that's a long answer. Is there another one?
Yeah, I got a bunch of questions, comments.
Okay.
Well, why don't you stay here?
I'm gonna
in case
sit right
we
here.
have to-
When I give you a question, if you could try to repeat it somewhat so
Okay,
that people
yeah.
know what's been asked. The first one, it looks like it's a comment from Dale. The report on financials compared current annual income to last year's income, which was useful to provide perspective. It would be curious to see the longer term trends in annual income, such as 10 years or 20-year history.
And we actually just spoke about that at our board meeting. We are going to develop, at least to the extent possible, that we can go back where we have electronic software, and we're going to create some trend lines. And we will have those hopefully by the end of this calendar year and at our next budget meeting. So we are going to try to develop some of that information.
Next question, and if you could repeat the question when you answer.
Yes, sorry.
How many owners are there?
Alex, you just mentioned how many owners we had, or how many owners actually are there? Some of us own multiple weeks, but how many actual owners do we have?
700, it's not exact, but roughly 760.
760.
Okay. This one is, I can't pronounce the handle. This question says, when banking for Wyndham, are those points from RCI or direct from Ramshorn? This was from earlier.
Well, it's kind of complicated, and again, I don't,
You can
repeat.
Are the points from RCI or
Yeah,
they
when
are
banking
from
for Wyndham, are those
Ramshorn?
points from
Who
RCI
determines
or
the
direct?
point value?
Okay, Wyndham determines the value based on Ramshorn, and you know, this is something that several years ago. I can't speak for Wyndham, and I don't know that they're still doing this, and to me, I thought it was such a good deal. I don't want to rock the boat, but they give us 4 times more points than the minimum amount we bought, like 300-some thousand points, 150,000 points for each white night, each white week here. And that's a lot. If you had to buy that in Wyndham points from Wyndham, that would be a lot of money, okay? So it just happened to be the right thing for us to do, and we're together. But they base their points they give us based on how they value Ramshorn. And again, like I said earlier, they have to go through a long process. You go talk to them, and then you come back and say whether our resort would qualify, and it did as one of the top resorts, of course.
So, can I answer a question? So, let me address the other thing because in my report you'll see that I make a comment that the fewer weeks that are banked to RCI, the higher the aggregate value. So what we're seeing is that the fewer owners overall who are banking at all, because those numbers have been dropping, then the value of those weeks have been going up, particularly in certain weeks. So generally speaking, and we always bank, I should say almost always bank weeks in advance for you to give you highest trading value. So if you do it like 9 months or more in advance, and we do it about a year in advance, you're gonna get higher trading value when you call us up and say, hey, I wanna bank a white week, right? And then we put it into your account. So with white season, you're seeing roughly, on the low side, let's say where we have a lot of bankings, maybe in April, we're seeing maybe 12 points with RCI. On a high side, I've seen them as high as 50, but that's unusual. So, you know, there is going to be some variance overall. Each year has gotten better, but you know, you've got resorts in Orlando that are going for 3 or 4 points. Yeah. The audience is shaking hands.
I want to add one other thing to what I was commenting on the Wyndham thing. What happens is we take those weeks, and Tiffany helps us with this, and gives us low value weeks. So we're banking low value weeks, and then we bank those into RCI. And then RCI, then we contact Wyndham at one point, and they pull those weeks from RCI. Wyndham owns RCI nowadays, so that works out pretty good. But there's a lot of, so that's how it works. And Tiffany always gives me kind of some weeks that in late November or something like that, when there's not a lot of demand for it, or mid-November or something like that.
And just so you know, what he's saying is the reason we do that, because if we didn't care about the owners, then we wouldn't do that. We would just bank weeks.
Oh yeah, it wasn't easy to figure out. So that's I really appreciate that.
So the reason we do that is we give the least desirable weeks to RCI, fire in advance to get the most trading value, which means that when you want to be here week 20 or 40 or whatever, there's no RCI guest here unless an owner directly deposits it sometime later. So we pretty much see most of the RCI people disappear by the end of April, and we won't see them again until November for all intents and purposes. So,
and a key point I would add is, and my husband handles all of this, but you bank
Carl's available for any tutorial.
Yeah, he's the guru. You bank way ahead of time. The more you bank ahead of time, the more points you're going to get, and then RCI recognizes that, and that's how we've been able to get into some very valuable resorts. Yes, Sean? Yes.
This is from Jerry Iwanski, and try to repeat the question if you can.
Yes.
Does the board and management continually look at ways to control expenses such as water and power usage? Do all of the homes have water flow restrictors? Do all of the homes have LED bulbs, including LED floodlights? Are there any opportunities to trim the cost of marketing or postage?
Well, you don't want to trim.
Yeah, the board, the question was, does the board look at ways to trim expenses such as utilities, water, lighting to LED lighting, and that type of thing in our homes? And one of the questions I think was something that Deb handles. So yes, we do. And but I don't know if we looked at water flow.
You never want to trim marketing. Marketing pays for itself. So that's not in the owner's best interest to trim marketing.
Right.
The heat, I can speak to the heat. The housekeeping staff always sets the heat back when they clean. So whenever you walk in a home in the wintertime, it's going to feel cold. But if the home is not occupied, the heat is set at a low baseline.
Right. So, and they have been doing the LED lights. The flow of water, I'm not sure if we've ever looked at that. I don't experience an overflow when I'm in a home, so I'm not sure that we've ever looked at that or discussed that.
Or low flow toilets.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that there were some. So I know we had a committee on that kind of thing years and years ago, and they made a number of suggestions, but they kind of made their recommendations based on not only cost savings, but comfort. Because they're owners.
Low flow shower heads are no good. From an experience, water savings.
Right.
And we had issues with some of the low flow toilets because they clog more frequently.
Right, and then we have to have Dan going out.
Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of a balancing effect to comfort and making sure there's good operations, if you will, within the home versus costs related to utilities. So we try to balance that, but we like Deb just said, we're owners, and we do care about the toilets flushing and being able to get clean in the shower. So it's always going to be a bit of a balancing act with things like that.
And we don't use a lot of postage. Most of our correspondence is electronic. We do use postage to mail you all your rental checks. That's one of the biggest. And then there's, certain bills that we do pay, by check, but we're also doing some online payments.
So most communications are by email, except for when we have to make payments by check of those weeks and or days that you have rented.
Next question.
Yes.
This is from George Hicks. Is there a particular goal or guiding principle related to the number of weeks that will be retained by the association?
We have not discussed is there a particular goal about how many weeks the association should own of their own accord so that we can maintain the units and provide that balance where we can address immediate needs of owners on the fly. So Tiffany can maybe do that. That's the question. And the answer is, right now, when you signed your contract, it was already mentioned that 1 week out of every home would not be sold. So we already know that in our contracts. If we officially change that to another number, then that would be something that have to come to all of you to vote on. And you would literally have to change your written contract with us. So that is something we've discussed that maybe we should address in the future, but we have not officially done that because that would require a change in all of our contracts.
This is from Terry. Do you have a date for the 2024 meeting?
Yes, we do have a date. That's one of the things I was going to mention. We are going to meet on May 25th, so it will again be Memorial Day weekend. May 25th, 2024, 10 a.m. for the annual meeting. And prior to that, on the 23rd and 24th, the board will meet again, and those meetings are open. So we welcome owners to attend those meetings.
This one's from Jerry Iwanski. Jerry Iwanski, does our sprinkler system use city water or well water? I believe I have seen our sprinkler system running during a rain or right after a rain. Is there an opportunity to control that more effectively?
Do you know?
I installed a smart water controller last year that monitors the weather via the internet. And if rain is predicted or it just rained, it pauses the system until it feels that it needs water again. If you can repeat just the basic.
Yeah, so that was a question as to whether or not our sprinkler system senses if it rained and then does not sprinkle as much or at all potentially. And also whether it uses well water or city water.
City water.
It's city water, Jerry. We did have a well on site next door, but there are multiple issues of certification with those wells, so that well was abandoned probably 30 years ago. Yeah, so it's city water. It depends on when you were here and how quickly that sensor is activated, but we do have sensors. On occasion, I know there have been problems with the computers, but if you see something like that, report it, and then we can check on it. But if you report it in real time, it's easier to address what might be causing it. There are times when we are more aggressive in watering because of fire issues. I think Denise already mentioned that. This is a year where we have a lot of moisture, so it's probably not going to be that way early in the season, but depends on what the summer brings. So.
This is more, it seems like a comment from Steve Watson. From last year, I understood the guiding principle was the balanced number of weeks that supply rental revenue to help keep our maintenance fees down. Very general. That's what it says.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true because, again, that was a question about is there an actual goal / number of the weeks that we would keep so that we can do rent and help balance and bring income in for the entire association. And again, that's somewhat of a moving target because we get, as already explained, as far as our owners' weeks, the ones the association owns, we give it last priority, and we give first priority to owners. And secondly, we're constantly monitoring it. And then lastly, we have our owners sometimes at the last moment, frankly, putting something up for rent. And we're going to try, especially during the red season, give them that value. So it's really a moving target, and we can't set an actual goal. And Alex has a comment.
I want to point out of those 300 weeks, only 100 that the association owns are red weeks.
Only 100 of the association-owned weeks are red weeks also. So that's something else to consider. So during the white season, again, and Deb mentioned this, we would never use one of our weeks ahead of one of your weeks during, especially the month of October. Our owners are going to, a lot of them are going to be here. There probably won't be anything available to rent during that month. And if there were something, it would be to the benefit of the owner.
This is a comment from George Hicks. The fact that the association owns a lot more than the minimum number already laid out in agreements suggests that there are other considerations behind where the current status of association ownership stands. This is not a criticism, but I would appreciate what the thinking is behind where it stands and where it is likely to go.
I think one of the things that we need to remember, and Alex just answered it, is there's some resale going on. So the resale often is actually in a better position than our owner-owned weeks. So lots of times it's a resale issue. And the other thing is sales as a whole are kind of incurring a negativity because of all the misinformation on timeshares. So that's one of the reasons why we have some of our owners' weeks that we would be happy to sell if we had good interest in them. We're reselling, and then we're dealing with some very bad press, if you will, on carte blanche saying all timeshares are bad when we know we are not bad. We're totally different than a typical timeshare, but that's our challenge.
Okay, next question, comment?
Yeah, I'll put a message here. I don't have any right now, but I'll put a message in asking for people to submit some if they have any more.
Okay. If we don't receive any other questions within the next few minutes, then we'll be closing the meeting, and we really appreciate all of your attendance both online and here in person. It's a gorgeous day in Estes Park, by the way, for those of you who aren't here. And again, next year, our annual meeting will be on May 25th, 2024, and the prior 2 days, Thursday and Friday, the 23rd and 24th, the board will be meeting, and those are open meetings, and you are welcome to attend.
Yeah, I'm not getting any other. Do you want to wait, Jeff, like a minute?
No, I don't. I think
we're good. Yeah.
Okay.
people did have an opportunity to also put questions in advance.
Right.
And I wanted to thank Sean. He's been our recorder, our video recorder for the last few years, and it's been very helpful both during the pandemic and now in person to allow for those of you to online be part of our meeting and not need to physically be here. So we thank Sean. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close the Owners Association for Ramshorn's annual meeting. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Lunch is ready. And as Tiffany said, lunch is ready, and we have a special treat out here. So.